All right, we do have Big Ten Media Days coming up next Wednesday and Thursday. Folks, we will not do the show as regularly scheduled next week because of Big Ten Media Days. We will do a show. We're looking at next Friday after Big Ten Media Days, so we, of course, can review what was said. And Kevin, I guess we'll go back to you in regards to what you would like to have stated at or responded to at Big Ten Media Days. What are you most looking to get out of coaches and players, and who, in fact, is headed to Media Days for the Buckeyes?
Wow, you asked me all of that too fast. I was sitting there starting to work on who it is that what I want to hear. I know Marvin Harrison Jr., JT, and I think it's a second offensive guy. Quit testing
Cade Stover.
Cade Stover. There you go.
I should know that. So
I got you back
on the spot. I should already know that. I should have looked that up.
Well, yeah, and I was just kind of looking at a comment from Jordan Kapler about any fundraisers for the Cornell Tate family. I know that there's some things that are being discussed, but until I see them, I don't know. But I know everybody here will put them out on social media when they see any sort of fundraisers for Cornell Tate's family. But I think over and above everything else, I have the the view of wanting to see what Northwestern is going to do at Big Ten Media Days with all of its issues going on and everything else. That's really where my curiosity is going to take me, and wanting to see how that is going to be handled. I want to hear what the new Big Ten commissioner just has to say, first of all, because I haven't really heard much with him beyond an introductory press conference. The state of media rights deals and what he's had to do to kind of clean up the mess of Kevin Warren at the end. View on conference expansion. Greg Sankey kind of took some thinly veiled shots at other leagues in terms of where they are with expansion. While I don't expect this to turn into some sort of war of words, I would really like to see what he may say there. And then for Ohio State, why don't you just give us your starting lineups right now, and scores would help too, because then I have all of August to pre-write stories then. But in all seriousness, I kind of have been joking internally with some friends about, it was just a couple years ago that Jim Harbaugh kind of delivered, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember the exact quote, about beating Ohio State or die trying or whatever. Well, they've won the last two since that has happened at that point. So are we going to see any grandiose statements from Ohio State to try and pull the mighty momentum lever back in its direction?
I'm just grabbing a quick bite here because I'm between assignments, but Matt Rule, Nebraska, are you really understanding what you're in for there when the homegrown guy, Scott Frost, couldn't get it done? How do you expect an outsider to go in there and get it done? Luke Fickell, Wisconsin, you took Cincinnati to the playoff. Can you do that at Wisconsin? Well, it'd be a lot easier with a 12-team playoff, certainly, but in the beginning next year. But I agree with Kevin. I want to hear what the new commissioner has to say about the state of the world, if he'll take the time to answer those questions. And I was the one who did the expose on the Marvin Harrison hit in the Georgia game, and Bill Carollo, among many others, had no comment about that. He usually sits down for about 30 minutes. And so I'm going to raise my hand and say, what was your take on that? And what they do right, what they do wrong, and let the chips fall where they may. So there you go.
The conversation with Carollo is always interesting because there's new rules being implemented, and you get to talk to the head guy of the Big Ten. And so there's always something that comes out from that. I'm looking forward, I guess, to finally being able to recognize Tony Petitti in a crowd, because I couldn't do it right now yet. So I think watching him talk for like 30 minutes will imprint on my brain who he is and what he looks like, and then maybe I'll be able to pick him out of a crowd. In terms of Ohio State, I don't know. I don't know that we're going to learn anything new. Because we talked to the coaches like 6 weeks ago, so we got all of our post spring updates, and all the questions and answers right now are just going to be, well, they're working hard. They worked hard in summer, and they're lifting weights and things like that. And so I don't know what we're going to learn from there. I do know that we're going to ask questions. So hopefully something comes out of it. But, the rest of the Big Ten, it's always fun watching Kirk Ferentz defend his son, his baby boy. And so I'm sure that will continue next week as well. And, how I guess one of the interesting things about doing this is when you go and after the coaches talk in front of the TV, then they'll go into an hour session like later that day or immediately after, where you can like sit and stand around them and talk to them. Now, like Jim Harbaugh and Brian Day always have a crowd of people, so it's hard to like get in there and like have back and forth. But I'm just interested to see how much more conversational Jim Harbaugh is, because over the years he's gone from like confrontational or non-responsive to maybe more conversational. So I'm wondering if how much he's feeling his oats right now. Brett Bielema used to always be fantastic at these things, but then he went to Arkansas and got humbled. So he's a little bit more boring now, but maybe after last year we can start to gas him up and see what happens.
Our Iowa guy, Corey Bretta, noted that Kirk Ferentz was the only coach out of the 14 this time last year after the USC-UCLA announcement that was not asked about the entry of those two schools into the league. I don't know that it's probably coincidence, but it does seem to impact those schools, that tier of team, more so than, of course, the bottom feeders. It doesn't matter who else they're going to get beat up by. And, of course, the elite should be fine. But that Iowa program gets impacted by two good programs coming into the conference and, of course, the split up of the divisions. And, it was noted that really wants to see a response to USC and UCLA by Kirk Ferentz. And JJ McCarthy, it was noted in the chat, not representing the team up north. Maybe a bit curious, since that's the guy everyone wants to talk to concerning Michigan.
Ohio State's sending a junior in Marvin Harrison, and they sent did CJ Stroud go last year? I don't remember, as a redshirt sophomore.
Yeah, because the big thing that came out at this point last year was that the football team could beat the men's basketball team in a pickup game or something like that, and they dangled that low fruit, and we all started salivating like Pavlovian dogs, and all had to run around and do stuff on that. But CJ certainly had his thoughts about that.
As it turned out, he was not far off. So, but that too.
I do think has anybody seen Ohio State picked over Michigan in any outlet or anything? I saw Josh Mustachio that this will be the first year since 2012 Michigan will probably be ranked ahead of. But in terms of the magazine, Steve did. I have not seen my Whole Wagon Weekly, so my apologies. I have not looked at it yet.
That's called Steve Says. That's his big feature. Steve Says.
Yeah,
but like all of the magazines have Michigan.
Yeah. Well, they said the media vote in 24/7 was 10 votes for Michigan and 9 for Ohio State. So there were a few people in our poll at 24/7 out of 19 media people covering the Big Ten that did pick Ohio State over Michigan. But, and that was exactly what the count was to win the Big Ten, too. To win the East, 10-9. To win the Big Ten overall, 10-9. So there you go.
Joel Klatt, I believe, is picking Ohio State to win the Natty, so I would assume in that potentially he's picking Ohio State to win the league, even though you don't have to now. I mean, and it'll be even different in the 12-team playoff. But
look what happened last year.
Not required.
Not even advised. Just get in without playing that extra game. Although those days are kind of over. I do wonder, you're talking about Iowa, Mark, like who who is hurt? Who is hurt most? Like, is it by the transfer over of USC and UCLA? Is it like Iowa's near the top of the list? So I mean, I don't think Kirk Ferentz would ever say, "Yeah, this is killing us. It's going to kill us." But what hurts most, bringing those two schools in or going divisionless? Because I think it's kind of the same thing, because those two teams would have been in the same division as Iowa. I think can Wisconsin overcome the introduction of USC, and we'll see if UCLA can get into the mix as a playoff team.
I think there's a layer of teams out west, or in the West Division, I should say, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin. You know, again, the other ones I don't consider because they're never competitive or rarely competitive. Purdue, of course, won the division last year, and Illinois, popped up. They were probably the best team in the division, but I think that layers hurt the most. And I think Iowa out of that layers hurt the most because they're a more consistent winner than any of those other teams. And I think Wisconsin is better equipped and prepared with Luke Fickell going forward to challenge. So I think Iowa's getting hit. This is just speculation, of course, on my part, but Iowa would be my number one target, is taking the hit more than anyone else.
I got a lot of thoughts here, so I'll try and be quick on each one of them so I don't dominate the time. But I see you, Tony. Every time the Big Ten brings in a new team, well, maybe save Rutgers and Maryland, they have these delusions of running stuff. We're going to come into the Big Ten and run stuff. Penn State certainly thought coming out from its independent status was going to come into the Big Ten and start winning league titles, and that just really has not come to bear. Nebraska certainly had some thoughts of coming out of the Big 12 and joining the Big 10, and that it was going to restore its glory, and that certainly hasn't happened. I think that when you look at a divisionless Big 10 moving forward, I think Iowa is still going to be consistent enough to get its wins against a lot of the other middling teams in the conference. You're not going to be drawing generally USC and UCLA on the same 9 conference game schedule or whatever. You're going to run into one of them. So they're going to be running into another team, at least in SC is as known, maybe not UCLA, a team that will be above them in terms of talent or whatever. But I don't know if I necessarily see it completely upending the natural balance of how we see things. I think that going divisionless just crushes everybody in the West, because if you have to sit there and play any combination of Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State or whatever, I mean, save USC, you're still going to see losses regardless of it being divisional, non-divisional, whatever. But I do see, I think that in a lot of ways, the addition of SC and UCLA create some interesting battles on the recruiting landscape. I mean, you have Ohio State and Michigan both trying to recruit the state of California. Now you're going to have USC and UCLA trying to move in and recruit the Midwest. I'm going to be curious to see here in a few years how that has changed recruiting territories.
Yeah, does USC and UCLA benefit from being able to go to the Midwest for offensive linemen and linebackers? And I know I'm stereotyping. There are tremendous wide receivers and corners and et cetera from Illinois and Ohio and elsewhere. But then, the Midwestern teams heading out to California and having more of a draw to bring them out of the Golden State. Yeah, that's going to be a while before we have enough metrics on that to try to filter through all of that.